Welcome to the April Project Review Board meeting. I'm filling in as vice chair as Ford is out unavailable for this meeting. And with that, I would like to welcome, first of all, Drew Sachs as our new member. I've known Drew for a little bit, not that well, but I'm looking forward to getting to know him some more and work with him in this role. So.
Thank you very much.
And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kyle for the information exchange.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. So first, since we were just talking about it a little before the meeting, I'll mention this. So I was talking with Drew about having like a one-on-one just to go over some of the ordinances and get him caught up on some of the processes and specific things where to look for. But as we were talking, kind of came up that it could be useful for other board members as well to occasionally pop in and just do a refresher or want to talk about some specific thing. So just want to extend the offer that if anyone is ever interested in stopping by the planning office and talking about any sort of function or topic that we cover in our reviews, I'm happy to set that up and kind of set aside some time.
When I had my one-on-one with Sophie and Caroline, with all of the changes to the ordinances, and I said, would it be possible for us to have a workshop? Just
As the whole board.
the whole board,
Yep.
so we could all hear the same thing?
Yeah, we could do that.
And benefit from and Sophie liked the idea.
Yeah.
So that, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Yeah, we could do that too. So maybe in the next couple of months, we can look at making a presentation, kind of going back over the last couple of years of all the changes that have been made and just doing like a high-level overview. So, yeah, sure thing.
Thank you.
All right. Other than that, update on the Freeport Comprehensive Plan. So we had that workshop on March 19th, which was kind of the final public workshop of the whole draft of the first draft of the comp plan. After that, with a few kind of touch-ups, it went to the planning board at the beginning of the month and then town council last night. And basically that was to get sign-offs by the chair of the planning board and council to send the draft of the comprehensive plan off to the state for review. So the state will take about 2.5 months to look that over and get comments back to us. So we're in a little bit of a waiting pattern now. But once we get that back, we'll be able to kind of fill in any comments or missing pieces that the state has to offer. There'll also be a public comment period during that window too, where people can continue to review and make some suggestions. But then after that, we'll be ready to start the adoption process. So that was kind of an exciting step for the comp plan. Topics for the planning board. Outside of comp plan, that's been our main thing lately. We will have design review coming back hopefully in May for an update with the planning board. So that May meeting is going to be one where it won't be a joint meeting with the planning board and project review board, but if PRB members want to attend that planning board meeting, there could be some items on there that are related to the PRB's work. So design review being one of them. We don't have a draft amendment at this point, but the consultant is probably going to be bringing a presentation with some like policy level questions to the board for discussion. Also, we had talked a while back about the whole campground topic. So we had reached out to the town attorney previously, who basically gave the guidance that the language wasn't clear and it needed to be fixed. So we're going to take that to the planning board at some point and get that on their work plan. So with design review and some of the comp plan work starting and some of the other things, I'm not sure exactly the timeline of when it'll actually be discussed at the PRB, or at the planning board, but we'll reach out and let you all know when that topic is on the agenda.
Could you just give 2 sentences as to which
issue this is with the
Campground?
campground?
The lot, the like lot size,
Oh, this is.
Requirement.
Desert.
well, it applies to all campgrounds. Our ordinance, if you'll recall from past discussions around projects related involving campgrounds, we have this standard that talks about having a minimum square footage
Right.
per campsite, and it's kind of confusing the way it's worded, whether you actually have to draw in these kind of like false lot lines around each site, or if you can just use like a net calculation, for the whole like lot area for the whole campground. So that was what the town attorney said. It's not really clear when you look at the ordinance, so we should probably just clean it up. So at some point, we'll have the planning board, when they have some time and space on their agenda, to take a look at that and get a draft to clear it up. But we would let the board know when that was coming up, since you're the one who used that ordinance and kind of flagged the issue originally, so you can attend that meeting if you would like. On that same kind of topic, another thing that's been on the planning board's work plan that might be coming up over the next few months that we've been talking about is taking a look at 602 in the zoning ordinance, which is the site plan review section. So there have been a few different places now, the downtown vision plan, I think the housing committee and some of their recommendations to town council and just staff have kind of flagged 602 in needing of some like cleanup and clarification and streamlining potentially with some of the provisions in there. Not so much the actual standards we use for like findings for criteria, but more so the procedural end of our site plan review process. So that could be another one over the next few months that we start talking about at the planning board, where we would invite the PRB to those meetings if you were interested in tuning in. And that's pretty much it for info exchange.
Okay, and staff approvals?
Haven't had any this past month.
Okay, great. With that, any other questions for Kyle? Okay. On to review and approval of the minutes. Yes.
Can I just comment and thank Sharon on behalf of all of us? That was a huge duty to collapse all those hours into one very cohesive set of notes. Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Okay,
Second?
okay. Since everybody's here, we don't have anybody online, we can just raise our hands. All those in favor? Okay, unanimous, Sharon? Thank you. And with that, we'll go into new business. The first two items are shoreline stabilization related. I'm going to recuse myself because I'm also on the Coastal Waters Commission. And with that, I would suggest and move that Fred be the chair for these next two items. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Fred, it's yours.
Great.
1 second. I think, Todd, when you recuse
Yes.
yourself, I think you're supposed
Okay,
to go
can do
into
that.
the audience.
Yep.
Formality.
I've seen
I'm
it
not
done
trying to
both
get rid-
ways.
Yeah.
Don't go far. And my understanding, and Kyle, I think you're going to give an introduction, but my understanding is we'll get one presentation, but then we'll do two separate motions. As it's-
Yes, correct.
Okay, great.
They're neighbors, right?
Neighbors, good. 75 and 77, I think.
Yeah.
And Kyle, any comments?
So these are two residential properties in the shoreland area. So they're here for shoreline stabilization. Unlike other applications that we sometimes see with these, there is no coastal wetland impact proposed. They're both proposing riprap along the shore area, kind of underneath the existing vegetation on the banks there. There's an erosion control mat that'll be put down first with the riprap above it. Access will be through an existing boat launch adjacent to 75 Shore Drive. so that the construction equipment can come down that way. In the application materials, there was a signed letter from the property owner at 75 giving access for the representative, Nick LeBlanc, who's online, and I'll turn over for his overview in a second to when they're constructing the stabilization to cross over 75 to access 77 Shore Drive. Again, no tree removal is proposed, no vegetation removal is proposed. So this one's a little more simple than some of the other ones in the past that we've taken a look at. So with that, I would turn it over to Nick to add in any details and then open it up to the board for questions. So Nick, I just gave you permission to talk, so if you want to give an overview or fill in anything I missed, feel free.
I appreciate you filling in, everybody, on my behalf. Yeah, this is kind of my first stabilization and contract down there. I've been speaking with John McLean and DEP on how to go about doing this the right way and checking all the boxes as far as protecting everything that is going to go on down there along the shoreline. Proposals to have, silt fence within myself and the water's edge, maintaining that throughout the project. I have about 3 to 4 days on the project, having deliveries come down the boat launch and using a small under 10,000 pound equipment to place the riprap along the shoreline. There are a couple pre-existing railroad tie sections that are going to come out. And again, no disruption to any vegetation in that area. Sourcing all my riprap from the Shaw Brothers Construction. They have a pit located nearby in Freeport, so that's where all my materials will be coming from. Other than that, the next process is to get my DEP finalized and then start the project. Don't know that I have anything else to add. If anyone has any questions, happy to answer them.
Thanks, Nick. One thing I wanted to add that I forgot to mention before, it's not specifically tied to the shoreline stabilization effort, but in my memo you might have seen in the application materials, code enforcement gave a comment related to 77 Shore Drive. So, as usual, we send out the applications for review and comment for other staff departments. So when code was taking a look at that one, they noticed a patio that they didn't seem to have any record of a permit being issued there. And that patio would fall within the necessary setback to the shoreline. So they flagged that as a potential violation issue. Now, we didn't want to necessarily tie up this application due to that issue because it's a shoreline stabilization effort. It's a positive thing to be going forward with. But code enforcement did recommend that we put in a condition of approval here that would require the property owner to at least meet on site with a DEP rep as well as staff to get that conversation started about however it ends up being addressed prior to the issuance of a permit for this project. So that's really the only other thing flagged here.
We're first going to do the other one, though, right? The 75? Okay.
Yeah, I was just giving all the presentation materials for both of them, but
Yeah, we'll do the motion on 75 first, then 77. But
Because I had something about the motion on the 77 based on that, so, but I will wait.
let's stick to
Yeah.
75
We'll wait
where
till-
we can and go from there.
Yeah, sure.
I just had one question, Nick. You mentioned the access via the private boat launch. Who's the owner of that boat launch, and is it safe to assume you have permission to access it from that boat launch?
Yeah, that boat launch is covered under Valerie Combs' the 75 property.
Okay.
They just allow others to access it as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
yeah, I believe there's an easement for the property owners in that area to use that.
Other comments or questions from the board? Anyone in the public have comments on this? Is there a motion on 75 then?
I'll read it. Be it ordered that the Freeport Project Review Board approve a shoreland zoning permit for Kevin Gillespie and Valerie Combs for a shoreline stabilization project at Tax Assessor Map 5, Lot 117, 75 Shore Drive, to be built substantially as proposed in an application dated March 11th, 2025, finding that it meets the standards of Section 306 and Section 404 of the Town of Freeport Shoreland Zoning Ordinance with the following conditions of approval. One, this approval incorporates by reference all supporting plans that amend the previously approved plans submitted by the applicant and their representatives at the Project Review Board meetings and hearings on the subject application to the extent that they are not in conflict with other stated conditions. Two, prior to the start of any site work for the project, the applicant obtain any applicable permits from the Freeport Codes Enforcement Officer. 3, the applicant obtain any applicable permits from the Maine Department of Environmental Protection.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second? Great, very good. All in favor? Passes 5-0. Very good. And on to 77, right? Or is that what? Yeah, 77.
Yep.
Any questions or comments specifically on 77 beyond what Kyle already shared?
I would like to make sure we add in an adjustment on the motion that we're going to do about this, meeting with whoever it is, the shore,
it's in here in
the
number
code
4.
enforcement. So I believe number 4 on the proposed motion is referring to that.
Yes, correct.
So can we add in at the end where it says, the last few words say, meeting with the code enforcement officer and Maine Department of Environmental Protection in order to discuss the non-permitted encroachment of a structure on the property? Or how, I don't know how you want to describe that
Yeah, I think
structure,
it's,
but
yeah.
something,
it's-
because it needs to say why there's a meeting.
Sure.
Any other comments or questions from anyone? Is there a motion? Since you came up with it, I get the words for you if you need them.
All right, I'll try. Okay, be it ordered that the Freeport Project Review Board approve a shoreline zoning permit for Keith Kennedy and Melissa Kennedy for a shoreline stabilization project at Tax Assessor Map 5, Lot 118, 77 Shore Drive, to be built substantially as proposed in an application dated 3/11/25, finding that it meets the standards of Section 306 and Section 404 of the Town of Freeport Shoreline Zoning Ordinance with the following conditions of approval. 1, this approval incorporates by reference all supporting plans that amend the previously approved plans submitted by the applicant and their representative at Project Review Board meetings and hearings on the subject application to the extent that they are not in conflict with other stated conditions. 2, prior to the start of any site walk for the project, the applicant obtain any applicable permits from the Freeport Code Enforcement Officer. 3, the applicant obtain any applicable permits from the Freeport Department of Environmental Protection. And 4, prior to the issuance of a shoreline zoning permit from the Code Enforcement Office, the applicant shall schedule a site meeting with the Code Enforcement Officer and Maine Department of Environmental Protection in order to discuss the non-permitted encroachment of a structure at the shore side of the property.
Second.
Second. All in favor? 5 in favor? Passes? Please, Mr. Chairman, come back. Relieve me of the pressure. Thank you very much.
Nicely done.
Just on you now.
And with that, we'll move on to 148 Main Street.
Okay. Jess is actually going to give this
Okay.
presentation for this one.
Great. And do you want to introduce Jess?
Yeah. Yeah, so for anyone who wasn't here, Jessica Chadburn is our fairly new now assistant planner. So she will, on occasion, be doing the staff reports for certain projects and coming to present on some items. So she'll also be taking over staff review board meetings, most likely, when we have those applications come in. So if you see Jess around, that's why. So
Welcome.
Hello, nice to meet you all. Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, if you're ready. Great. The applicant for this next project is here tonight seeking approval for a design review certificate application for alterations to the exterior of the property at 148 Main Street. They're proposing to replace the existing stairs and patio that run along one side of the building and connect the lower parking area from the street-level sidewalk. Currently, the stairs and patio are constructed of red brick and wooden beams. However, the conditions of those materials are deteriorating. So the applicant is proposing to replace the stairs, landing, and curbs with granite blocks and the existing patio with concrete pavers with a slate texture. Photos of the existing conditions at the site, as well as proposed replacement materials, were included in your materials packet, as you will find those there. The applicant was at the board in October. You may remember the property had come forward for some additional material changes to the front door and the gutter system at that time. They have come back again tonight for the next phase in their planned improvements for the property. Because the proposed alterations constitute a material change that will be visible from the public right-of-way, the project is subject to design review. However, because the alterations are exterior and not to the building themselves, the majority of the design guidelines for the design review ordinance don't actually apply. You'll be looking at primarily at number 9 of the design guidelines, which is site features. Site features requires that the size, placement, and materials of certain exterior features, including walkways, be visually compatible with the existing buildings and with the neighborhood buildings. Granite steps and stylized concrete pavers can be seen at several buildings in the surrounding neighborhood. As such, staff has no concerns about this project meeting the standards for design review. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
and if we want to hear from the property owner as well.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yeah,
of course. Yep,
yeah,
sorry.
let's go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Hardigan. I'd like to apologize first because the timeline of this project got off on a rough start. We came to a situation when the snow cleared this year that the wood that was there had rotted completely, and it was a safety hazard. We came in, our landscaper also got off to a start ahead of us. So this project is a little backwards right now because we are nearing completion. If you've been by the building, you've probably noticed that. So we basically came down when the digging started and met with both Kyle and the codes people and said, hey, we've got a situation, we're in violation, we're not sure what to do, and looked for some instruction. At that point, we decided to keep moving forward because we either had a big hole in the sidewalk next to Main Street that we could either caution off with tape for the rest of the summer or try to complete this project. I have pictures of the project where it stands now. I can provide those to you. I have one copy. I don't have enough copies to go around, but you can share them. But I think it's a beautiful addition to Main Street. And again, we want to apologize that we got kind of backwards on this project.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Lynn?
Yes, I'm looking at the existing handrails.
Yes.
Are those I didn't know any mention of it, or I missed it.
Those are being replaced. They're going to be replaced with cast iron. We're still kind of working on the final design of that.
Including all the way up, because it sort of starts mid-street.
Yeah, code, I think they have to be a little different now than they were previously. I think code wants them to be continuous and on both sides. They can break at the landings. So we've kind of talked to the codes office about that, and we're trying to make sure the cast iron people are kind of on the same page, because once all that gets fabricated, it's a little difficult to go back.
Yeah, the reason we from the staff's perspective, we actually recommended not including handrails in the application because it falls under, handrails are one of the things that fall under an exemption in the design review ordinance when it relates to code and ADA compliance. So it's one of those things that,
So that's why we didn't see it. Yeah.
so like now I believe there's one railing, if I'm correct.
There was one railing, yes.
Right, and I think the requirement now is that two,
One on each side.
but that's kind of a compliance issue with ADA versus something that we could, discuss from a design component.
Thank you.
Just a general comment. I
Yes.
drove by, it looks great. A real upgrade from what the building looked like
Yeah,
before, so.
we feel it is.
The appearance looks really nice.
Thank you.
By the way, I also want to state the same thing. It's always nice to see a local business investing in a new property. I'm also both happy and sad that I'm sure my wife and my daughter were the ones who actually paid for this work.
Well, thank you.
It is a dangerous location.
It is a dangerous location and a dangerous store, but no, seriously, it's wonderful.
We have a grand opening coming up, so I look forward to seeing her then.
I just had one question. I
Yes.
think in the application language, there was mention of work to come in the future, so that is not part of this application, correct?
So it got a little confusing because we weren't going to replace the bricks down on the patio at first. We hadn't made final decisions on that. Again, when the snow cleared, this project probably should have been done years ago. It had deteriorated that poorly. So we basically kind of, we didn't have final selections on those pavers and things like that when we first came to meet with Kyle. So there may be some missed notes in there that there's others to come. We are going to be continually improving the property, meaning that we do have, right behind the property, there's a 7-car parking lot before you get into the public lot. So from there down to the public lot, there is a brick walkway that is still in need of repair. We are probably going to be looking and meeting with you again, because we're probably going to be looking to replace that the later part of the year to early spring.
Okay. And I also agree with the statements about how well it came out. It really is a nice use of
Thank you.
materials and blends in beautifully, even without the plants being there, which are going to make it.
We thought it was a nice compliment to the bistro's work they did the year prior.
Any other questions? Okay, any questions from the public? Anybody online?
Nope.
Okay, with that, are we ready for a motion?
Be it ordered that the Freeport Project Review Board approve the printed findings of fact and design review certificate for Primus Holdings LLC for alterations to the existing exterior stairs and patio at 148 Main Street, Tax Assessor Map 13, Lot 18, to be built substantially as proposed with the application dated 3/11/2025, finding that it meets the standards of the Freeport Design Review Ordinance with the following conditions of approval. 1, this approval incorporates by reference all supporting plans that amend the previously approved plans submitted by the applicant and their representatives at Project Review Board meetings and hearings on the subject application to the extent that they are not in conflict with other stated conditions. 2, prior to the start of construction, the applicant obtain an applicable permits from the Freeport Code Enforcement Officer.
Second?
Okay,
Just a question, if we need to modify the number 2 because of the fact that some of the work has already begun due to safety concerns on the property?
So they would still need to get whatever after-the-fact permit. So I wouldn't say that even if work has been done.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting remove it. I'm suggesting that we might want to get rid of prior to the start of
Prior to
construction.
the start of construction. Yeah, it could be. It could just, read the part after that the
Right.
applicant obtained.
The applicant condition of approval that the applicant obtain an applicable permits. Okay.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay, Sharon, unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good luck. Okay, and the next item is 30 Main Street. I think we know where that one is.
This is a really problematic applicant.
So
Kyle.
since Albert's here, I'm going to let him do most of the talking about the site itself, but I'll just say that this is coming forward under a site plan amendment and design review. More so on the design review side, the actual impervious area total would probably typically fall under a staff review threshold and not trigger board review and approval. But with the design review being triggered regardless, it's all for you in front of you here. We did send this out for review by town staff. There weren't too many comments. Initially, code did offer a comment to look at a couple ADA pieces. So if you would have seen on the original application, there were 3 granite benches here that got reduced down to 2. A little pavement in this area of the plan got extended out to meet one of code's comments as well. And then our peer review engineer took a look at it and had a couple comments that were fixed in a memo from Albert, as well as addressed on the revised plan that we sent out earlier this week. And that was largely just fixing some typo oversights on some contours and kind of reconfiguring the shape of that bioretention basin, the rain garden, to avoid that, the existing birch tree out in the front lawn. So for anyone, I think everyone here and online is probably already aware of this, but this project originally, the idea behind it was approved in 2022 by the PRB with a kind of different level of improvements with the same general idea. I do have that site plan here as well. So if you take a look on the screen, you can see it kind of followed a similar shape and pattern to the front lawn area of Town Hall with some reconfiguration of the pathways with that circular plaza in the middle with the granite benches. The plan from a couple years ago had a granite retaining wall, whereas now it's some granite slabs that were reclaimed, but overall the same kind of general pattern. So beyond the code comment and peer review engineer comments, staff didn't have any additional concerns. So I turn it over to Albert for the rest.
Albert?
Thanks, Carl. That was good. I was wondering if you were going to have the older plan available. I'm just curious, how many of you on the project review board were on the board when the project was approved 2 years ago? Oh, a majority, I'll say 4 of the 6.
No.
So, the intent for this redesign is really to provide the same functionality and aesthetic that the first design had, but have it, but may have the project cost less money. And I can go through and point out some of the major cost-cutting things, but just in general, it's basically because we're, reusing some granite blocks for seating out there at what's sort of known as the amphitheater area, instead of all new cut granite from a quarry. And similarly, some of the other granite work that was proposed the first time is now change, it's now been eliminated. So there's really very little purchasing of new granite material. And let's see. Again, although Kyle mentioned all this, I'll just point out that the ADA changes.
Albert, real quick, if you go up to the screen, I don't know if the mic next to you on the podium.
Yep.
I think you can.
Okay.
Oh, there's a handheld one there too that you might be able to use.
Oh, I can
on
just
this side.
It's on the far side of the podium.
The other
There's a
side?
little shelf on the side of the podium.
On this side, yep. That one might work.
Is it working?
I don't know. Tom will come in and yell at us if it's not.
Well,
Or someone will.
Just on.
On the job.
okay. Just to repeat what I said a second ago, the granite blocks are going along here, the same location as the old, or as the previous design with the cut granite. This walkway area turnout is now been enlarged to have more space for a potential wheelchair for ADA access. These benches reduced the number from 3 to 2 in order to have more room around them for that same reason. So that's just the ADA thing. Actually, I should have started off by saying, another big change is that the previous design had a walkway from the corner of the driveway and Main Street to the circle, as shown right there. And the new design eliminates that because of for a few reasons. I think it's not as necessary as maintaining the access down to Grove Street. And this was determined from talking to staff and people who use the building. And, just from my experience myself, spending time in town hall, it's pretty rare to see somebody walking up Main Street from West Street to get to town hall. And if they do, they make the little jog. But typically people come from the parking lots out here. And sometimes they park on Grove Street and come up this path right here. So it seemed like this path made more sense to maintain, although we're going to change out the existing wood steps with granite, replace the handrails, again, both sides, and let's see, and and again, I can go into a zillion details because I'm an engineer, but with that said, I think I'm going to just ask if there's any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions?
For some reason, the one thing that I remember from the last plan was that there was to be parallel parking along the driveway. And then you go around the circle and enter the parking lot as you do today. But instead of having the handicap straight ahead, there was the ability to have cars adjacent to the driveway.
Yes. Can you pull this out enough to see at least the driveway? Or you could even go to that original or the previous approval. My understanding was that a lot of those changes, we'll call them improvements to the site, to the driveway entrance to Town Hall, were part of a second phase of the project. And so those kind of changes to the handicap parking out here, all this stuff outside of the red line, basically, is still a project that could be done.
Because I thought there was a case made for that particular orientation for handicap.
Well, I think
But it still could be done.
Yeah, so
The engineer did believe that was the case, but I also believe from talking to Nick that the current arrangement, which you can, from talking to Nick, he felt that the current handicapped access and the 2 parking spaces here, if you want to change that to the current design, was adequate and in compliance with ADA requirements. So I'm not really sure why the earlier design had that parallel parking handicap, all those improvements that he had, but it didn't seem like, well, besides it being a second phase of the project, it also didn't seem like it had a strong need from my standpoint.
Other questions?
I wasn't here a couple of years ago for this. Can you explain so the front steps will disappear and you're going to bring the grade up? Is that what's going on?
Yes, exactly.
Remember the microphone, Albert?
Okay. Again, just for excess information, the earlier design had granite block retaining structures, I'll call them, on either side of this new walkway to the town hall porch. And the current design actually has the elevation of this plaza not as high as the first design, but still elevated above what's there now. So there's the slope from the plaza up to town hall is like 4%, which is a very reasonable shallow slope. It'll just be lawn on either side of that path, which will be contained by what's called here old granite curbstones for retaining wall. So this will hold soil back from impacting underneath the porch, from running out underneath the porch, and provide an edge. What do you call it? For aesthetically nice, an edge, and then lawn slope.
Will there
along
still
the
be a
edges.
step up to the porch? Or
No. This will be a walkway, a ramp that'll come right up to the elevation of the porch.
I see. Okay.
I don't have the numbers, but I mean, I believe that it's about the plaza will be about a foot below the porch, and because it's a 4% slope, which is a very reasonable slope, and which is the case on this walkway here is also very shallow up to the corner. Unfortunately, that corner has some ADA kind of grade drop-off issues because Grove Street is so steep, but we're not going to be rebuilding the road or changing that design as part of this project.
And then one last question for me, the bicycle repair station that looks really neat, where is that on the?
That is right here in basically the corner of the sidewalks.
Great, thank you.
Will the parking lot and the driveway and everything come back to us since it's a phase 2? Because I'd just like to put in a vote for, assuming that the majority of people who will be using Town Hall and its services, we drive here, and we walk in what today is the side. And in order to get up into the entrance to Town Hall, you have to go around 2 cars ostensibly parked in the handicap. So instead of having an entrance where you can just go and have it be appealing, welcoming, you've immediately got a barrier. I think that's why I remembered it. I really like the idea of putting them along the driveway and then having an open access to the side entrance or whatever. Just my 2 cents.
Okay, good point. I'll say that I'm unaware of any schedule or funding for doing that next phase as of right now. It clearly is not, the possibility is not changed by this project.
Okay, thank you.
Sophie, did you want to add anything?
I think Albert just said what I wanted to say. I mean, I appreciate the feedback, but really the question in front of the board at this time is, does this project as designed meet the standard? So what you saw before was a $500,000 project on a $120,000 budget. So what you're going to see today is going to be,
125.
yeah, but it's really about, did what we do meet the standard?
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just had two questions. Looking at the grading contours and the trees, do any of the changes, which seem to mostly involve fill, affect the viability of any of the birch trees that are out there currently?
No. The original design had tree wells around a couple of the trees out there, which I've never been very fond of myself because they can have impacts from the fill outside of the tree well. But this grading is as close to keeping it the way it is right now as possible.
Then the other question was just trying to understand better the 4 3,000-gallon tanks and the drainage. So it looks like you're picking up drainage in new structures that drain to the tank.
Yes.
Presumably the tank drains to stormwater somewhere, somehow?
Yes. Okay. Although it's not extremely noticeable, there's an existing catch basin out there in the lawn. And it's going to be raised so that the grade from the plaza to the street corner is relatively flat, with a new catch basin installed there, a little ways away, which will not need to be as low as that one, but will still pick up all the water from this area. And the plan doesn't show, but these 4 stormwater tanks discharge out to the storm drain pipe in the street. Okay. And again, those are historic. I think they were put in the 90s, I'll say, approximately. I forget. It might say in there. I forget now.
Yeah, so the addition of the rain garden is kind of aesthetic as well as functional, so that'll pick up some additional stormwater and then attach into the existing management.
Correct.
Stormwater on the site.
Drew?
Just a small question for clarification. The 2 granite retaining walls by the porch, or
Yeah.
whatever you call it, the access there, what's the height of those above grade?
In round numbers, or max, it's 2 feet. Maybe it's 20 inches.
Okay. I wasn't sure what the height was and whether that was perhaps creating some little alcove of darkness, so to speak, that could become a security issue.
Oh,
But at that height, it would not.
No.
I just saw on the lighting plan, that area is clearly not lit. So I just wanted to check and make sure.
Okay. One thing I'll say about the lighting plan, oops. Oh, yeah, it's on. One thing I'll say about the lighting plan is it does not include every light that's on the site, so it does not include the lights, the street lights, which actually add quite a bit of light on that side, on the Main Street side, and it doesn't include the lights on the porch, which exist. So
We'll solve that problem anyway then.
that's right.
Thanks for the clarification.
I have just a follow-up. When you keep saying, you say porch, is that what's called on here, the entrance on the Main Street side? Is that what that is versus the deck? I mean, I'm looking at different things.
Oh, I think it's called the deck on the site plan.
I didn't quite catch what Kyle said, but it's the entrance to Town Hall on Main Street, which you could call it, I'd call it a porch because it has a roof over it, but it's the deck and roof.
I clarify. I thought there was some other outcropping of something that I didn't see.
No.
And just follow up on that. You said the walkway from the circular area is going to be straight up to it. It's just graded a slight bit, but
Correct.
not a step up or anything?
No.
And that includes to the deck itself? Is
Yes.
Straight?
Straight.
And what about into the building? There's the one step at the door?
I think that there's very little step there, a couple of inches. In parallel to doing the site work, the the town facilities guys are going to replace the door hardware to make it more ADA compliant, is what I'll say. And I'm confident there's not a big step there. I don't know. I think it's just an inch or something.
Okay, so there's still the other side of the building where we all come in from the parking lot. That's where it's ADA and ramps and everything, so that's where people should know to go rather than after they sit down a while, they have to go back around.
Well, I think really both entrances to Town Hall will be ADA compliant is the intent.
So this would have a ramp of some sort, then? It doesn't really need, I mean, this side here.
This side does not have it now, but it's going to be provided by this project.
4% grade.
Yeah, the grade itself, but it's not a ramp like, when you see a ramp that goes one direction and then comes around.
Right. It'll just be grade-wise, it'll be compliant, whereas the ramp that turns around will continue to, be available over here on the other side.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Any questions from the public?
Check on Zoom. No one on Zoom, so.
Okay.
Freeport, Eric Smith, Freeport Historical Society. I'm really just here in support of this project and also just with a few comments about some of the questions that were raised by the board. As you all know, this is a significant historic structure. This part of Town Hall is one of the few, if not only, extant buildings designed by John Calvin Stevens. It's a significant part of historic Main Street in Freeport, and one of the things that is often the case when we're trying to create universal access is it goes around the side or it goes somewhere else. And this project provides the original Main Street entrance to this building a new accessible entrance, which I think is key, particularly as we're trying to create a more walkable downtown. This really is the walkable entrance. I know when you were talking about sort of the approach from the parking lot, and certainly a lot of us who come here to this building drive, but for folks downtown, this entrance has been a bit of a problem. It's not open year-round, usually. It's sort of like Charlie Brown on the football. It's like, do I try to go to that door? No, it's still locked. It was locked tonight when I came, even though it's technically the season when it should be open. Really providing this as the new place and the focus of the Main Street facing historic building, I think is a key part of this aspect. While it's certainly important to have the side entrance also be accessible, this really, as Albert pointed out, makes both entrances accessible, and I think it's a significant improvement to how the town is utilizing this historic building that it has deemed important enough to make its town hall.
Thank you. And nobody online, so, okay. Are there any other questions?
So from a design review perspective, great. I think it looks fantastic. My other question is on the landscaping 10 and 15 years from now, the trees that are being planted in front, will they take away from the view of the building, or how will those trees look to future generations for us?
I think a reasonable answer to that is it'll depend on how they are maintained over that amount of time. They're dogwoods and elms. The elms will be tall, so you'll be able to see under them. The dogwoods, I don't. Again, it'll depend on whether how they get trimmed up over time. But they could be pretty big in 100 years. But I think it'll be maintained in a way that looks good, nice, is what I'll say.
The view of the building or anything like that, then?
Yeah, it's not going to obscure it in any significant way. You might just look through the...
I just add on to that. I think my guess, I wasn't here for the original 2022 approval, but the downtown vision plan called for things like additional street trees and things like that. So when we're talking about adding in walkways and along that Main Street sidewalk, providing some additional shade trees and things like that, I imagine was part of the priority of the plan.
Good.
Any other questions?
Thanks.
Okay, are we ready for a motion?
We are. Thank you. Oh, proposed motion. Be it ordered that the Freeport Project Review Board approve the printed findings of fact, site plan amendment, and design review certificate for the town of Freeport for a variety of site improvements in the front lawn area of the site at 30 Main Street, Tax Assessor Map 11, Lot 130, to be built substantially as proposed, with the application dated February 18th, 2025, finding that it meets the standards of the Freeport zoning ordinance and Freeport design review ordinance with the following conditions of approval. 1, this approval incorporates by reference all supporting plans that amend the previously approved plans submitted by the applicant and their representatives at Project Review Board meetings and hearings on the subject application to the extent that they are not in conflict with other stated conditions. And number 2, prior to construction, the applicant obtain any applicable permits from the Freeport Codes Enforcement Department.
Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay, unanimous. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing it.
That's great.
When will it begin?
It
Fantastic.
is, great. And then our last, second to last item is election of the chair and vice chair, and I believe secretary should also be here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to suggest, since Ford is not here, that we postpone this until our next meeting. Is that okay with everybody?
Makes sense.
Okay.
You need time to,
So we have to make a motion.
So if he's not here, that's the perfect time to vote on the chair.
So,
I make a motion to table this item till next week, officially.
Please
make the
do.
motion.
Sure.
Second.
okay, all those in favor? Okay, thank you. And the last one is adjournment. Unless there are any other questions? Okay, anything from anybody? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
second.
All those in favor? All right.
That beats shortage of seconds.
That beats 10:30.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.